Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Betsy G, and today we're going to take an old family recipe, blow it apart, and put it back together. We're going to make the most luscious brownies you've ever had. Growing up in the Midwest, I can remember coming home in those cold, windy Chicago days, climbing the 2 flights of stairs to our apartment, and I knew if Grandma was baking because the smells would be coming down the hallway. Open the door, and you know the smell when a pan of brownies is cooling on the counter. Well, that's what this recipe is all about. And I don't think my grandma would mind how I changed up her recipe. Paula said to make it your own, and that's what I've done. Well, let's fast forward about 40 years, come to California. I'm raising my own daughter and trying to recreate those same kind of memorable smells and tastes in my kitchen. And we're having a great time. And about 2 years ago, when she was in 4th grade, she was diagnosed with gluten intolerance. Now, this is a Philadelphia cream cheese video. It's not a nutrition video. Let me sum up though, because it's really important. If you can't eat gluten, you can't eat things made with wheat. Slam me against the wall, no more cookies on a rainy day, no more pancake breakfasts, no more coffee cake on a Sunday morning. Well, I just wasn't going to have that. My daughter was going to grow up with wonderful rich desserts like I did. So I got to taking recipes that I loved, creating them, making twists on them, so we could as a family cook together in our kitchen. And if I've lost you, if you don't know what gluten intolerance is or celiac disease, stay with me just a minute, because I'm sure you've heard all the research that's been done for kids with autism, certain behavior disorders, and how their symptoms are greatly decreased. Their symptoms get better when they don't eat gluten. So with that in mind, let's knock it out of the park. We're going to make some cream cheese, coconut, pecan, dark chocolate brownies that everybody can enjoy. You're going to notice that my recipe is written a little different. You know how some recipes have all the ingredients listed and then you go to the store and get those, but when you go to make the recipe, you divide this here and put that there. Well, that makes my head hurt. I can't follow that kind of a recipe without getting confused. So I wrote this recipe in stages. So when you're making your grocery list, read the whole thing so you know you have enough sugar and enough eggs. Now, I want to talk for a minute about something that I found really important when you're baking. When you're cooking savory, this isn't as important, but when you're baking, you have to mise en place. I don't speak French, so I'm probably kind of slaughtering that, but what you want to do is measure. Measure and place. I'm going to illustrate why I found it to be really important. You're home, you're cooking alone, you think everything's good, doorbell rings, FedEx shows. Favorite thing to do is to have a pencil with me, and of course I don't have one in my hand right now, and mark real quickly on the recipe where you stopped. Take care of life, come back, erase your mark, and keep measuring and placing. That will be your best friend when you're baking. Okay, so we've got our ingredients pre-measured, and I know you know how to do that. So I've already, in fact, melted my chocolate in the double boiler, and we're going to turn that off. We're going to let it cool just a little bit because you know you don't want to add that to eggs if it's really hot. I've decided to use dark chocolate in this recipe because it makes the brownies luscious. Actually, a friend of mine uses the word sexy when she talks about really dark chocolate. So that's what we're going to make today. Some really dark chocolate, sexy brownies. But the best part of this brownie recipe is, of course, the Philadelphia cream cheese. What I've done here, you can look into the mixing bowl, I've clearly got my butter and my cream cheese all mixed together, and the sugar has already been added and incorporated. Now you've measured out your eggs, right? I put my vanilla in with my eggs, which just simplifies a step. I want to add them one at a time, let them get incorporated too. Okay. Now you'll notice in the recipe, it calls for rice flour. That's the part that makes it gluten-free instead of all-purpose flour. You can find rice flour at all health food stores, definitely at Asian markets. And some of the mainstream grocery stores are now carrying it because there is such an interest in the wheat-free cooking. So you incorporate that just to kind of thicken up the recipe. And then because this is my recipe in my video, I've decided to add coconut. As I said, I think Grandma would approve. So I wrote on the recipe 2 small handfuls. It's kind of up to you. So that's what I've measured out. And I'm going to add this. And you could gently fold it by hand. I'm going to do this, mix it in. You've got your gorgeous cream cheese layer ready to go. Okay, so I kind of like to think of this as like the cheese layer. You know, when you do a lasagna, you have layers. And this beautiful cream cheese sugar layer with the coconut is going to go in between the chocolate layer, and then we're going to marbleize it. So we're going to set this aside. Now I've already mixed my chocolate batter, because this is only a 10-minute video. But what you are going to do is then add your slightly cooled chocolate, butter, and vanilla to this mixture. See why the dark chocolate makes it so, so beautiful. And don't leave an ounce in the pan. Get as much of it out as you can. You need all of the chocolate. You'll notice in the recipe I've included powdered cocoa, unsweetened cocoa, because we need to get that sexy, luscious chocolate flavor really emphasized. So we've incorporated melted chocolate and cocoa powder, rice flour, and you'll notice there's another ingredient called xanthan gum. When you begin gluten-free baking, you kind of become a mad scientist. You have to use all these odd ingredients. Xanthan gum makes up for some of the texture that's lost when you take gluten out. Now, I've added pecans because I like them better than walnuts. You can add nuts of your choice or omit them, it's your choice, but I love pecans. And when you taste these with the coconut, the dark chocolate, and the pecans, it's going to be reminiscent of a German chocolate cake. All right, so now the important thing you need to know is that you need to separate out approximately 2 cups of this batter. Don't measure it because the batter is sticky and that'll take you forever. So do an approximation, 1 and 2. This is going to be your top layer, okay? Put it aside. Now, what you want to do in a 13 by 9 pan, you want to make sure it's really well greased. I sprayed this with non-stick cooking spray. And spray it really well because your batter is really, really sticky. And again, get all of it out that you can. We'll leave a little to lick for your family to come and clean the bowl, but you really need it all for the base of your brownies. Don't be afraid that it's sticky. Press it around as best as you can. This is going to be the foundation of your cream cheese brownies. Now comes the cheese layer. You've got your beautiful coconut infused real vanilla. I know you're not using imitation vanilla, right? Only 100% real vanilla extract. Spread that around. Now the trick is to marbleize the brownies with the reserved chocolate mixture. Just drop it by tablespoons, by glumps. Let's just call them glumps right here. And when you go to swirl it, you're not going to want to swirl all the way to the bottom of the pan because you want to keep the base intact. That's the base of your brownies. You want that chocolate foundation. So now take a butter knife, it works the best. And you want to swirl through, but notice how the knife, I'm only using maybe 1 inch at the tip. Don't go all the way through to the bottom. You just want to swirl the top layer. So you're going to, in each bite, have a chocolate base, the cream cheese in the middle, swirled with the chocolate. Okay, so you've got your pan all ready. Your oven should be preheated to 350. You're ready to go. And about 40 minutes. Okay, so in about 40 minutes, this is what your brownies are going to look like. I want you to see that the cream cheese layer needs to be just a little brown, and they need to be a little cracked on the side, but they're a fudgy brownie, so you don't want to overbake them. Now at this point, you have a decision to make. You can either cut some pieces and eat them nice and warm, just like this, or you can refrigerate the whole pan, melt a few chocolate chips and some butter, do a glaze, and when they're real cold, cut them into pretty pieces for presentation's sake. I think eating them warm with a cold glass of milk is what's going to work for me today. I'm Betsy G, and I hope you enjoy making these brownies and serving them to everyone, because everyone can enjoy these.
Thank you, Grandma.